Oh wow, that's a lot of edges. Whenever you're starting a jigsaw puzzle, the most common advice that you can get is to start with the edge. But what do you do if almost the entire puzzle is edge? Today, we're gonna find out. Today, we are going to experience the edge. So if we look at the back of the box, it's basically frames within the piece cut forming extra edges inside the puzzle that don't interlock with each other. Ooh. Oh wow, that's a lot of edges. So this concept was actually patented, and I'm going to talk more about the patent at the end of the video, but in the patent, they claim that this piece cut dramatically increases the difficulty of the jigsaw puzzle. So that's what I want to find out today. Does this piece cut actually make the puzzle harder? Because when I look at this image, I don't think it actually looks all that hard. Like, if this was just a standard, like, Ravensburger jigsaw puzzle with a standard piece cut, I wouldn't expect this to take more than about 4 hours, which is pretty standard for, like, a single person doing a 1,000-piece puzzle, you know, without trying to, like, speed run it or really rush through it. So I'm just gonna say right now, if this puzzle takes me significantly longer than 4 hours, then, and only then, will I concede that the piece cut actually does make it harder than normal. But to be totally clear, before I get into it, this is a completely different puzzle series from The Edge. From The Edge. I already covered these puzzles in another video, and with these, every single piece was an edge piece. Well, except for the corner pieces, which ignited a big debate in the comments about whether corner pieces count as edge pieces. But this series was made by TDC Games, and this series was made by Great American Puzzle Factory. And this one is not entirely edges. It does still have some inside pieces mixed in. So whether it turns out to be significantly harder than usual or not, I'm really excited for this one. I think this is going to be super fun. But before I get started, putting the edges inside the puzzle is a different way of doing things. So let me tell you about a different approach that you can take to meal planning and cooking. How was that for a transition? Today's sponsor is Factor. They're a service which I genuinely love, where you get fully cooked and prepared meals sent straight to your front door. So Factor is really great because they have a weekly menu of 35 different options to choose from. So I can be eating something different every single day, and I've never gotten a meal from them that I didn't like. There's no preparation or cleanup. You just warm up the meal in the microwave, and then a few minutes later, you're ready to sit down to dinner. I'm so hungry. I'm so excited for this. Oh, that's really good. And I mean, after filming a really hard puzzle, hopefully I won't be having too late of a dinner. I just get so tired that literally all I can do is flop down on the couch with a slight detour to warm up a Factor meal. And then in addition to the meals, they also have breakfast, snacks, juices. Like, you can just stop going to the grocery store altogether. Okay, I'm so excited for this. When I was picking out my meals for this month, I saw they had this new matcha protein shake, and so I'm gonna try it. This is my real taste test. I love anything matcha, so I really hope this is good. Okay, that's really good. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna drink this whole thing. So if you want to try it, you can head to factor75.com or click the link right down below and use code 50puzzles to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code 50puzzles at factor75.com to get 50% off and free shipping on your first box. All right, so doing the sorting took just over 20 minutes. And usually when you're starting a puzzle, even if you are separating a lot of different sections, one of those sections is usually the edge pieces. In this case, I did not separate by piece shape at all. I only separated by color. And that's because I looked at the back of the box and I counted, and here's what we're working with. In this puzzle are 16 corners, 315 inside pieces, and 675 edge pieces. So that means that there's more than double edge pieces versus inside pieces. So looking at the table, here's how I sorted. We obviously have the sky. I think that might be where I start. Then we've got the pink flowers. We have the wildflowers writing. We have the blue flowers without any writing. And then we have the big yellow flowers, the smaller yellow flowers, and miscellaneous. So looking at this now, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just not going to be that different than doing a regular jigsaw puzzle, but not starting with the edge and just starting from the middle and working your way out. Although I am looking at this and that is a lot of edge pieces. So maybe I'm being a little overconfident. But there's only one way to find out. Yeah, let's get started. Let's see how this goes. Oh, I did it! Okay, I got my first two pieces together. I think these also go together. Look at that! I think this one is gonna attach there. Ooh, okay, I have an idea. Yeah, okay, that's the one that connects there, but they don't lock together, so I just have to sort of make sure that I keep them together even as I'm working across the rest of the table. Well, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I think this might be a perfect puzzle. Truly perfect. Like, no notes. This is so fun. Like, I didn't even want to stop the time lapse to update all of you. I kept meaning to stop, and then I was like, no, I want to keep going. So I'm 2 hours and 14 minutes into it, and I think I'm about halfway done. So I think my estimate of 4 hours was pretty accurate. Now, I know that down in the comments, some of you aren't gonna like that the pieces don't lock together. Like, the sections just don't lock at all. Like, if you had this section and you were moving it around, you have to make sure to keep these sections together. There were definitely a few times where I moved like half of it and then found the other part later. So you just have to keep track of that. But that honestly doesn't bother me. I feel like I'm not even looking at the edges or looking at the specific piece shape. I'm going entirely off of the image, and then whatever piece shape I get is just, you know, whatever happens. It kind of reminds me of a vintage springbok, where the pieces are just so wacky that you just work your way across, and then eventually you're done and you look back over it and you're like, oh, that's what I just put together. So as you can see, even though I sorted out these blue sections, I started from the top and then I just started working my way down into all of these colorful flowers. And I was definitely looking at the box quite a lot to get the placement of everything. So I think now I'm just gonna finish up all of this, finish this bottom edge, then do all of these blue flowers in the middle, because it's kind of a lot that all looks very similar to each other. And then I'm gonna finish with the text. And I've definitely made the mistake before of trying to start with big text like this, but when, you know, the letters are this big, so you can't even see on each piece what letter you're dealing with, I think this is definitely going to be the hardest part of this puzzle, so I want to get everything around it finished and then just work my way in. But I am loving this. I'm having a great time. I'm so excited to get back to work on it. All right, I happened to catch the timer right as we were passing 4 hours. So I'm not gonna beat 4 hours, but it's not gonna be very far over because I'm almost done. As I suspected, this has been a really difficult part of the puzzle. I even resorted to turning all of the pieces so that the edges were all going in the same direction, just so it was easier to see what I was looking at. Like down here, you can see these are literally all the pieces that are left that aren't edges. And I was even, you know, fully filling in an entire edge, which I haven't really been doing in the rest of the puzzle. but I'm just trying to get pieces in anywhere that I can. But I think I've hit the point where it's going fast enough that it should only be a couple more minutes. I'm still loving this. This is super fun. Yeah, let's finish it up. Oh my gosh, you guys, this whole time I was convinced that I was missing this piece. Like, I thought that was unique enough that it would have made itself known. Turns out it's made up of these pieces. Who would have thought? All right, so let's finish this up. How did these even go in? All right, so we have one like that, and then a fake corner like that. Now I'm done. So my final time, 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 4 seconds. Pretty much exactly what I expected. Oh, that was so fun. Oh, I loved this one so much. All right, I'm back. So in the time since I filmed that first part of the video, I competed in a 24-hour puzzle marathon here in California, and then I flew to France and I competed in another 24-hour puzzle marathon in France. So that video is going to be coming very soon. And I guess this is as good a time as any to mention that, unfortunately, I won't be going to nationals this year. I decided to do something different and cover those 24-hour puzzle contests instead. So I think that video is going to be really good. But first, let's go ahead and finish up this video. So I didn't think that one puzzle was a big enough sample size to really get my full thoughts on this concept. So, you know me, I went onto eBay and I got 2 more from this series. This one I think is going to be really hard, so we'll deal with all of that in a little bit. This one I think is going to be pretty easy. And so just for fun this time, I think I am going to separate all of the edge pieces from all of the inside pieces so that you guys can see what that looks like visually. Although keep in mind, there are some false edges even in the inside pieces, so it's not going to be a perfect separation. All right, this one is still sealed. It's brand new. I'm so excited for this. Let's get started. Really quick, something that I noticed first thing is that a lot of the pieces in this puzzle were freebies, where the pieces were still fully connected. So in order to preserve the integrity of this vintage puzzle, I decided not to separate them. So here you can see some of the pieces that I'm starting with already together. Also, I love that before I took off the shrink wrap, you could still see the original price tag. I love stuff like that. Okay, so here I am starting the sorting. For this, I'm just separating by piece shape, not by color or texture or anything else. All right, I took an 18-minute detour just so I could show you guys visually. So these are the corner pieces. I'm actually missing 2. I'm sure they just ended up with all of the edges. But yeah, there's 14 of them here. But then over here, we have around 300 inside pieces and around 600 edge pieces. So this is not the normal ratio that you get with a typical puzzle. So I didn't film any updates while working on this puzzle because I was having so much fun that I didn't want to stop. The beginning went together totally fine, like all of these borders and then the text. When I got to the middle of the puzzle, it started getting a little trickier. And one thing that I was surprised about is that it was actually really helpful to have all of the inside pieces separated out from the edge pieces, because there were so many fewer of them that I was able to build out the middle of the puzzle pretty easily. All right, so that one was super fun. It took me just over 3 hours, which is what I expected. You know, this is a much easier image than the first one. But next, the puzzle that I'm gonna do today is the one that I'm the most nervous for. I think this is definitely the hardest one in this entire series. So this one is called Bells and Whistles, and the image is of bells and whistles. But as you can see, it's all just mixed together. It's very similar colors across the entire image. You know, I'm thinking I might start with all of the reds, but I'm not totally sure. We're gonna have to see once I open this up and actually look at the pieces. I'm expecting this one to take about 6 hours. I mean, we'll see. All right, I think I just have to stop talking and just get into it. Oh, I'm so nervous. This is gonna be really hard. Alright, so in the last puzzle, since I found it so helpful to have the pieces separated by shape, I actually did that again for this one. So I'm separating by inside shapes versus edge pieces. Then I went ahead and started pulling all of the reds, like I said. And this is actually where I think having so many edge pieces made it a little easier, because I could orient all of the pieces correctly relative to each other. So I could get, you know, some sections going pretty quickly. So at first, I was actually pretty optimistic about this. I thought it was going faster than I would have expected. The problem is that since I had spread everything out, I had some real problems with space management. So I couldn't get everything kind of placed geographically, like following along with the box, until I had way more smaller sections put together. But also, even once I did start getting things placed geographically, there was quite a lot of space between them with just like silver pieces, which there were so many of. So at about 3 hours in, I decided to orient all of the edge pieces with the edge down at the bottom so that I could see everything a lot more easily. And then I really started getting things kind of connected together. And again, this is where I filled in the middle because there were way fewer inside pieces, so it was a lot easier to find the piece that I was looking for if it wasn't an edge piece. So then, as we're coming up on 5 hours, I started shape sorting again, just within the edge pieces, which really started helping it go a lot faster. Okay, so we're 5.5 hours in, so I feel like I'm probably not gonna finish this within 6 hours, but maybe like 6.5. Now that I've shape sorted, I think it's going a lot faster. So as you can see, I'm sort of working from the middle out, and that's because since there are fewer non-edge pieces, it was actually easier to find all of these, because there just weren't as many of them as all of these edge pieces. But now I've shape sorted based on the ins and the outs on the sides of the pieces, so it's going a whole lot faster, and I feel like I'm almost at the point where there's few enough pieces that I can find what I'm looking for pretty quickly, but I am just gonna power through and try to finish this tonight. It's about 5:30 p.m. right now, so, hopefully I won't be having too late of a dinner. All right, so I really thought that I was hitting the home stretch here, but this puzzle reminds me of a vintage springbok where the pieces are so wacky that you just never really know what you're gonna get. And I definitely could have just followed along with the piece shape from the back of the box, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do this, correctly and just like any other puzzle. So I got through a whole lot of podcasts. I mean, it just kept going on and on and on. But eventually, late into the night, eventually I got there. Oh man, I can't believe I finished this all in one day. Here we go. So excited to be done with this puzzle. If I can figure out these last 5 pieces, how do these go in? All right, here we go. The last piece. Done. So that was 8.5 hours that I did all in one day. Starting to get a little tired. Okay, so I'll be honest, when I decided to solve that puzzle, I did not know that it was going to be an 8.5 hour puzzle solve. Was doing that necessary for this video? Debatable. But I think after solving 3 of these, my final opinion is that this piece cut makes solving the puzzles more interesting but not necessarily more difficult. You know, the times that I got for all 3 puzzles is about what I would have expected if they were just a normal piece cut, so I don't think having all of these edges made the puzzles significantly more difficult. So let's take a look at all of the puzzles that were released under this series. I could only find 7 of them online, so by doing 3 of them, I've essentially done half of the series. So first, they had 3 releases in the old box design, but then they redesigned the box and they released 4 more, including re-releasing the Wildflowers puzzle. Now, looking more closely at the box, these were designed by Karen Eckert-Meyer, the Karen puzzles of the 90s, if you will. And then there's also a patent number. So of course I went and I looked up the patent. So here you can see the timeline of the patent. So it's been expired for a while. And then you can see that the original idea was to make a puzzle that's as complicated as a 2,000 piece puzzle, but without taking up that much surface area. The complexity of a larger puzzle is here made available to the smaller puzzle. So if we look at the drawings that are attached to the patent, first you can see a simplified version of this concept with just 1 interior rectangle so that there's an equal number of edge pieces to inside pieces. Then in figure 2, she shows how some of the pieces can be joined together to lock the rectangles in place, which is a concept that wasn't used in the final puzzles. And then on the last page, you can see different ways to arrange it, like breaking the puzzle into quadrants that are joined with just 1 piece, or having smaller squares inside, or having a bunch of squares right next to each other. In the end, figure 4 is the most similar to the final puzzle. And in the text of the patent, she also proposes doing this with round puzzles, but she acknowledges that the different arcs that you would get wouldn't be as interchangeable as the straight lines. So I think this is so interesting to see the thought process that went into these. I mean, when I was designing my Gradient Cascade puzzle with the cutout shapes, I made so many sketches that were so similar to her sketches. Obviously independently of each other. I hadn't seen this patent until I started making this video. And to be clear, having cutout shapes within a puzzle is a concept that a lot of different companies have experimented with over the years. But anyway, with this specific concept of having all of these edge pieces so you don't actually know which ones form the real edge, I actually think they took a big risk by not having the sections locked together. I think that some people might be put off by that, and I do think having the joiner pieces would have made this maybe more palatable to the casual puzzler. But I love that they really went for it, and they were just like, no, we're gonna have all of these separate sections that nest inside each other, but never lock together. So going back to the back of the box, you might be wondering if this drawing is accurate to the actual piece cut. And it is, it's just turned 180 degrees from the way the puzzle was printed, which was a little confusing the first time that I was looking at it. And then going back to the graphic that I made earlier, I wasn't totally sure what was going on here because it looks like it's just one big L-shaped puzzle piece. But looking at the puzzle, it is actually 2 separate puzzle pieces. So we can adjust the graphic, and confirm that this puzzle has 1,007 pieces, which is interesting because a lot of puzzles actually have 1,008 pieces because that's just how the math works out when it's a grid cut. But for this one, it's a completely custom cut, so I'm really surprised that they didn't design it to have exactly 1,000 pieces, especially because some of these pieces are just traditional puzzle piece shapes, except cut in half. Also, on the box, they never share the exact numbers, they only ever share the estimates. So then, looking at the back of the boxes, for the original series, they all have the exact same back. But then for the newer releases, they redesigned it so that the actual puzzle image is overlaid on a graphic showing the piece cut, except for the bells and whistles puzzle, which just has these solid black rectangles. So I have to wonder, was that image too busy and you couldn't see the graphic of the piece cut on top of it? Or maybe it was just a printing error. I have no idea. But again, I love when puzzle boxes do this. It's very similar to what we did with the Gradient Cascade puzzle, where you have the image cut overlaid on part of the image to show the puzzler that it's not just a traditional puzzle piece cut. And then one last thing, I got this puzzle secondhand, and on the box, they have written that there's one piece missing. And then when I solved it, you might have been like, there are no pieces missing, you have all of them. Well, that's not totally true. Whoever had this before me actually made their own custom piece to replace the missing one. And it's really good. Like, I bet you can't even spot it until I point it out. So here it is. You can see that they painted in the missing part of the image. They did such a good job. I love that. All right, so this series gets 5 stars from me. I definitely recommend them if you can find them secondhand. I mean, Great American Puzzle Factory is just a solid vintage puzzle brand. Like, if you remember, they also did the Unlikely Place puzzle, which was a really good version of the scavenger hunt prize puzzle. So if you want to see me solve the edge puzzles, which are all edge pieces, I'm gonna link this video right down below. And interestingly, this one also had a patent for us to look at. So let me know down in the comments if you would want to do any of these puzzles and whether it bothers you that they don't actually lock together. Your code word for the comments will be flowers. Happy puzzling, and I'll see you all in the next one.